Derek Horne, welcome back to the show.
Hey, glad to be back. I survived.
Everybody, Derek Horne is the director of programming for the Annapolis Film Festival in Annapolis, Maryland, and the short film programmer for the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. Derek, first, let me say Mazel Tov. What an amazing festival you pulled off. And it's year 10 for the Annapolis Film Festival. So make sure to get there for year 11. I know I will be. I had the most amazing time, and kudos to you.
Yeah, sorry the weather couldn't be a little nicer, but it gave all the more reason to be inside watching films, right? It's it's always the perfect weather for the locals in Annapolis to give them something to do, but maybe not the best weather to showcase the town to the visitors. But what did you think of that opening night? We had like a tornado warning, right?
Yeah, and it was the kind of opening night that was so much fun for me. I mean, there was a guy there shucking oysters. There was I'm talking about the pre-party. So
Yeah.
the way it works is there's a party before the movie and a party after the movie at the um what Maryland Hall is the venue?
Yeah, that's the main venue where the opening night film screened. And this year we decided to have a huge tent outside so we wouldn't have to shuttle people back and forth to different places. Usually the opening reception is somewhere else and the after party is also somewhere else. But this time it was all right there with a tent with a tornado warning. And possible hail. And so, but it seemed like by the time the after party happened, after the film was over, it had calmed down and it was actually slightly warmer. And so, then people were having a good time and the band was playing. But that pre-reception was a little dicey for a while there. The whole red carpet, the opening night red carpet. Thought that was going to blow away. Let's just say it was a whirlwind experience, literally.
Well, and you had a folk band, all female folk band for the first party, and then the after party was a funk band, and there was chicken tiki masala, there was chocolate since it was a chocolate theme too, and
Well, and
then
there was shepherd's pie because it was British food. It was British cuisine because the opening night movie took place in England in the 60s with Roald Dahl and Patricia Neal, their life there. And back in 2020 when we had the film Military Wives for opening night and our guests were going to be director Peter Cataneo, who had directed The Full Monty, his previous film, and actress Kristen Scott Thomas. They were coming out for the festival, and it was a British film. So our sponsors, our wonderful catering sponsor, they're called Palate Pleasers. They were all excited to do this whole British dinner, and that got canceled because of COVID. So now they had their chance to do the British thing. Plus, we added the chocolate element because Roald Dahl wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And, the movie touched upon some of his inspirations for that novel. But we didn't quite have the chocolate fountains I was hoping for. I wanted to take a swim in the chocolate river, but I think COVID pandemic guidelines probably made that a little bit unsafe, unsanitary.
I really enjoyed the Coppola wine bar where they had the Sophia champagne and then they had the red and the white. And I mean, I think you really stepped it up and took it to the next level. I know a lot of spring festivals can seem to fall a bit flat, but Annapolis was quite the opposite, where you're presenting some of the newest films available. And I think the program this year was just stellar and so many good gets, so many talked about films and little indies that you may not have another chance to see otherwise. Why don't I know we talked about Emily the Criminal on the show we did about Sundance, but I and
Yeah, we got it. We were the first festival after Sundance to screen that movie. I was so excited because that was my favorite film from Sundance. So that was a spotlight film. Let's see, let me just,
And it also won the award for Best Actress.
ta-da! Emily the Criminal. Yes, Emily the Criminal won, tied for our jury award for best feature film. It tied with our other spotlight film, which was 892. Ta-da! And you'll notice something similar. There's Aubrey Plaza, who won a special jury prize for actress, and John Boyega won a special jury prize for actor. And both of them in these pictures, you'll see they have black eyes. I guess these pictures are right after they were punched, but basically both characters are these, you know, ordinary citizens who are pushed to the brink by an unfair system that they get caught up in, and they have to resort to extreme measures to get what's owed to them, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. And so it's somewhat tragic stories, you know, but excellent acting performances by both of them. And I really think that is, they're both very timely. I mean, in 892, John Boyega is a military vet who is not given his disability check from the VA. Well, in fact, he has PTSD. And Aubrey Plaza plays a woman who can't get an honest job because of an incident in her past, and so it keeps showing up on her background check. And she, you know, she's clearly an honest, hard worker, but in today's system, it's just very unfair to people. It doesn't give people a second chance.
You also had some amazing documentaries and short films, but one more narrative I think we should mention, since I had such a great time with the team behind Glob Lessons, and it was so
Yes.
nice to meet them and have them have such a great experience at the festival.
Yeah, that's definitely a favorite independent film of mine this year, like A Christmas Carol or Robin Hood to different elementary schools. So I actually screened the film at the Annapolis Elementary School. I thought that was perfect theming. So both of their screenings happened at the elementary school, and the two of them, we had them at Santa Fe last fall, right, Jacques? And I premiered it in Tampa at T-Glyph. Well, not premiered because they premiered at Tribeca, but I had it the closing night film at T-Glyph, and it won, you know, Emerging Filmmaker Award. So it was great to have them in town. And then another film that I feel is sort of a kindred spirit to that is called Yelling Fire in an Empty Theater. And it also has a lot of heart, excellent acting and writing, very low budget though, guerrilla style. I think they joke in their description that it was made for less than the rent of a Brooklyn apartment. But I found that film at Slam Dance. I discovered it at Slam Dance. It was my favorite film there. And, you know, really glad that I clicked on the extra page of films, because since it starts with the letter Y, Yelling Fire, it ran off the main page and you had to click a little arrow to go to the next screen, and there was just Yelling Fire. So I'm really glad I clicked that arrow, or I might have missed that film. So yeah, the director Justin Zuckerman was there, and several of the cast members, and I know the audience really liked that film. And several of these came very close to winning audience awards, but the film that won, I'm happy to say, is this French film that I saw last year at the European Film Market, and I loved it so much that I quickly put a reservation on it for the following year. It's called The Rosemaker. I always love to say Rosemaker, The Rosemaker. Where is it? Where's The Rosemaker? And it's very inspiring. I mean, I got standing ovations, and grown men were brought to tears, and it's just a feel-good film. And I can't find it. There it is, The Rosemaker. And it has this French actress, Catherine Frott, who was in a film we had last year. And, you know, I could totally see this film being remade in America, and they'd probably cast Melissa McCarthy in the leading role. But it doesn't need to be remade, because it is so, it already has enough of that sort of American commercial formula feel to it, but with some of the French sophistication. So for me, it's a perfect film. It's the best of both worlds, American and French cinema. And so that's another favorite. Also, the closing night film Peace by Chocolate also got a standing ovation.
We're back and we're talking with the director of programming from the Annapolis Film Festival in Annapolis, Maryland, Derek Horne. He also is the short film programmer for the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival. Derek, that was a fun little segment. And I'm just stoked to be coming back from Annapolis on such a high after meeting so many cool people. And we just talked a little bit about some of the feature films that you were so proud of and got to your closing night, but we had to go to a break. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, so the closing night film, I wanted to bookend the festival with chocolate. So we opened it up with To Olivia featuring Roald Dahl, who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And we closed it out with Peace by Chocolate, which is a feature narrative based on the true story of a Syrian refugee family whose chocolate factory had gotten bombed out in Syria. They came to Canada as refugees in Nova Scotia and started their own chocolate business there, and which is still a thriving company. You can look it up online. It's literally called Peace by Chocolate. And their slogan is one piece, PEACE, won't hurt, I think. But we actually brought in the candy bars from Peace by Chocolate and handed them out at the end of the screening. And I'm not talking a little square. I'm talking a whole bar. Everyone got a whole bar of chocolate, and it is so good. I see what the film is talking about. I don't know if that's how Syrian chocolate tastes, but it is definitely the best chocolate I've ever had. It was dark chocolate with, I think, some dried blueberries maybe in it. So I did a Q&A with the director, Jonathan Kaiser. That film has won so many awards, audience awards at top festivals all over. And it was just a really fitting film to close out our festival. Very inspiring, uplifting, enjoyable, funny, touching, moving film. But it's particularly at a time right now, everything happening in Ukraine and around the world and with refugees. It's definitely a film we need right now, because what this Syrian family goes through in Canada with the locals in the small town of Antigonish, which is, I think, 2 hours outside of Halifax or 3 hours. And they're very supportive and welcoming. It's not this kind of anti-immigration nationalism that it seems to be sweeping the world. But it was a really inspiring movie. So that was our closing night. I wish you could have been there for the awards ceremony, Jacques. It was really cool. We actually had a lot of the filmmakers there to receive their awards. We had John Patton Ford, the director of Emily the Criminal, was there to get his trophy. And then Abby Damaris Corbin, she directed 892, which tied for the jury prize with Emily the Criminal. She was there to pick up her award. We also had we had a tie for the two jury documentary features as well. The feature documentaries, Fire of Love and The Automat, they both won a tie. So there was a tie in the narrative features and a tie in the documentary features. And the films deserved it. I mean, the jury was really, all the different juries. There were the documentary jurors and the narrative jurors, and they were all at a stalemate. So really glad. And then, of course, Aubrey Plaza won for Best Actress and John Boyega won for Best Actor. So yeah, those two films, don't miss them when they get released this summer, 892 and Emily the Criminal. Both two of my favorite films from Sundance.
Derek,
And then also, our audience prize went to the narrative film was The Rosemaker, the French film. And then the documentary feature for audience went to the Dionne Warwick documentary by Dave Woolley. He was there to accept that prize. You want to talk about shorts? I love shorts.
well, maybe before we do that, you brought up that I was there. Maybe we can talk about why I went. There was a panel called To Stream or Not to Stream, where we talked about the importance of theatrical release, the future of streaming, and you put together some really wonderful minds for it. And I just had the greatest time getting the chance to talk about movies with all those people.
Yeah, you were on there with Maheen Ibrahim from Disney Plus. She's the producer of the Disney Launchpad program. You were on there with Sharon Badal, the VP of Shorts Programming at Tribeca, and I know they license films, license shorts for streaming and airlines. And she's a real advocate for getting filmmakers paid, which is really exciting because at one point I thought YouTube came along, Vimeo, short of the week, they kind of killed the business throwing these shorts online for free. But it's really getting back to the idea of premium content. And even if it's just 99 cents, it's worth paying the filmmaker, the artist, for their films. So who else was on the panel with you, Jacques? Sandrine Cassidy at USC Film School, where I'm now working, and we do a lot of distribution with the student films. It's amazing how many platforms there are out there that will pay for short films now. Is like more than I can count on my two hands. So that's very
Yeah.
promising.
You put together so many cool people. Waduya was also on the panel.
Wadua Wali, yes, she was a co-founder of Reverie, which is like the LGBTQ version of Netflix. She was also on our jury and our pitch contest. We did the shorts challenge again this year, where 5 contestants, well, 3 of them were duos, so 5 projects, but I would say 8 people in all, got up on stage and presented their pitches and to a panel of judges as well as a live audience, and they had a video presentation behind them. So that's always really exciting. And then of course the shorts programs, which I love to put together with all those themes. And we had filmmakers coming to the festival from as far away as Romania and Kazakhstan. I mean, if you remember on our previous podcast, I was raving about that Romanian film at Sundance called Love Stories on the Move by Karina Gabriela Deșavianu, and she actually came all the way out there, was practically sleepwalking through opening night, the poor thing, but she looked great, even when Delta Airlines lost her luggage. So all the other filmmakers banded together. It was like Cinderella. They were all contributing, like, wear this and wear this scarf and wear that. And I think Eileen gave her this beautiful dress to wear. So it was such a bonding moment for these filmmakers in the van, on the shuttle on the way from the airport. And then, the filmmaker from Kazakhstan, Samgar Rahim, he won the audience award for best narrative or best short film. And he got up on stage and he gave a speech in English. And at one point, he talked about how exciting it was to meet Monica Levinson, the producer of Borat, his favorite comedy, and how much he loved Borat. I think when Monica first met him, she probably thought, oh gosh, is this going to be a dangerous situation? Because I understand Sasha Cohen, what's his name, is not allowed in Kazakhstan. But anyways, no, Samgar is truly a huge fan of the film. And then he got up on stage and was just shouting, "I love you, America," which I think, felt really good to everyone there to know. I mean, gosh, Kazakhstan's right next to Ukraine. I mentioned the word Ukraine and we got mysteriously muted by the forces that be. He was there to receive his award. That was for his film called Street Poet, but there was also a short film called Street Reporter, which is a documentary short by a professor at American University in Washington, D.C., and she made a documentary about these homeless reporters that run a newspaper reporting on, the homeless situation and interviewing other homeless people. And Sheila and Reggie were there on stage, and it was really inspiring because through the documentary, you see they finally are able to finally move in and get an apartment and not be living out on the streets anymore. But obviously homelessness is such a pervasive, ongoing issue as well. So Street Reporter, very timely documentary short that won our jury prize. The narrative short that won the jury prize is called Night Ride. It's a Norwegian film that we had at Santa Fe, if you remember, Jacques. And it was so funny because Sharon Badal, who was on the jury, for shorts, was so excited that she invited the short film to screen at Tribeca. And, usually Tribeca requires some sort of premiere, whether US premiere or world premiere, but they made an exception for this incredible short film.
Derek, let's go to a break and
All right.
we'll come back. We can talk all about the team that you put together. So many people from Santa Fe: Chris Breedenberg, Nathan Hollis, Bryce Warren, plus Eileen and Castle. I just had the greatest time. We're
A
talking
lot of
with
familiar
Derek Horne.
faces. Yep.
Here we are getting to talk about this bridge between the two festivals. So many talented people that work here with us in Santa Fe and live in Santa Fe, many of them were there for the Annapolis Film Festival. I'm talking Nathan Hollis, Chris Breedenberg, Bryce Warren. How do you entice them to fly to the other side of the country and nearly kill themselves working for you?
Well, it's helped by the fact that they work so many other festivals that are kind of in between the two locations. So, like with Chris Breedenberg, he was just making his way across the country because he also worked the True False Festival which is in Missouri. So that's about halfway on the way to us. And Bryce went up, I think, and worked Durango before he headed on over. And then, of course, there was Castle and Eileen, who come down every year from Denver to moderate and do Q&As and handle social media. So it was definitely the Santa Fe invasion at Annapolis this year. But I have a much more interesting tie-in between the two festivals, which I think could really qualify these two as sister festivals, because the St. John's University, one of the oldest universities in the country, I think the third oldest, has a campus in Annapolis where we normally do screenings in their theater. And St. John's is home to the Great Books program, where you read hundreds of books, and that's how you get your degree. You just read the books and discuss them. Sounds fun, right? And then they opened up a Santa Fe satellite campus, right? Have you ever been to that campus, Jacques? So I think it's really cool that St. John's exists in just these two cities, and they both have great festivals. And I love working and programming for both of them. So I just wish the weather was more ideal. Like, I always come to Santa Fe at the end of October when it's a little bit too chilly for my taste, and it's that dry climate. I would love to come to Santa Fe in the summer. I'm sure I would love it. And Annapolis in March is always so unpredictable.
Yeah, some fests for us, it's just gorgeous with highs of 70, which I know is still a little chilly for you, but some years it can be really windy and chilly. Like last year, we had some really cold temps the first part of the week. But normally, third week of October is one of the nicest months here. But I think that kind of touches on something deeper. I mean, is it the control freak within you that wants to control the weather?
It's the Floridian in me. I was born in Florida and now I live in Southern California. I was forced as a teenager to move to Utah. And so I think I have an uh, emotional traumatic tie to cold, dry weather during the school year. And then I would go back and visit my dad in Florida in the summers in Florida in the depth of hot, humid, muggy. So as I'm an adult, I like to control my surroundings, or I like to control the position I put myself in. So it's really hard to get me, somebody who lives in paradise, to come to a location with colder weather, although I used to do it every year for Sundance and I put up with it, but these last 2 years with the virtual Sundance Festival, I've gotten really used to experiencing, as we mentioned before, Sundance in our pajamas and next to a nice cozy fireplace. I don't know. I think it's wanting to control my situation. When I was a kid, I couldn't control it. It was out of my control, and I hated the cold, dry winter weather in Utah. But now that I've grown older, I can put that aside and objectively appreciate the natural beauty of mountains and Utah. And Telluride's one of my favorite festivals, and that is a beautiful mountain town. And I don't mind the quick freak snowstorms that happen in Telluride during the festival, because it's usually like a light snow and then it's melted by noon, and it's just that beautiful autumn fall weather. So it's just a gorgeous time to be in Telluride. And I'm just curious, Jacques, what you think is the best weather, ideal weather for Santa Fe? Would you say is autumn really nice there in September, or would you say summer is good?
Yes, summers are mild here, especially like in August when it starts raining. We get the monsoons. But yeah, late September, early October, that's, 70 degrees, not a lot of wind. The spring here can be windy. But, Derek, when you say forced to move to Utah, is that your parents? Is that a cult initiation?
It's yeah, well, my you could call it that. My mother is and still is Mormon. My father was not. So I had those two worlds that existed for me, which gives me an interesting perspective. I really don't take freedom for granted, and freedom of choice and thinking, and I think it's made me more open-minded, um, to all cultures and religions and belief systems. But going back to Sundance, we mentioned Sundance and how nice it was to do the virtual festival. Um, what's really interesting is how I also did, the European film market, which is in Berlin. And that's not a place I'd really like to be in the depths of February. I finally visited Berlin in the summer and I loved it. I can't imagine what it's like in the winter. But once again, movies, a festival experience, it's the perfect time to be indoors watching a film when the weather's miserable outside, right? It's just that it never fails. Every year at Annapolis, right on the last day of the festival, suddenly the weather gets gorgeous. It becomes spring. All the cherry blossoms come out, and by then all the filmmakers are leaving. So, but this year, oh, this year we had all sorts of crazy things going on during the festival. Did you see that parade that happened right in the midst of our festival? It was, I guess, the Martin Luther King Jr. parade delayed from January, and they had it right smack in the middle of Saturday of our festival, kind of messing up the traffic patterns. But it was quite a spectacle, and people, you mostly had to get around on foot because traffic was clogged. But Jacques, I always joke about this Annapolis festival. I say it's cursed when it comes to these external circumstances. I mean, 2020, you had our most exciting opening night ever with Kristen Scott Thomas and a live military wives choir that was going to perform afterwards. And then, of course, COVID hit 2 weeks before. So we had to cancel the live part. And of course, that week was beautiful weather, just to rub salt in our wounds. That March 26th of 2020 was absolutely glorious, 70 degrees. That whole weekend was gorgeous. And then I think it was 2018 of Annapolis. We had a blizzard the night before opening night, which a lot of our filmmakers got stuck from LA, got stuck in Minneapolis and had to turn around and fly back to LA. 2019 was, I believe there was a gun rights march in the middle of the festival because there had been a shooting, a mass shooting at the Capital Gazette newspaper. Every year something crazy happens. I mean, so it's a very eventful festival. I guess chaos breeds what?
I want to talk a little more about Bryce and Nathan and Chris and all of them working with you in Annapolis. But before we go to a break, I'm glad you brought up Sundance because you and I partied at Sundance so many years in a row. We partied at Telluride so many years. I'm trying to think of some of the other festivals where you and I had a great time. Sedona, were we both there at the same time?
No, but you and I have both gone to Cannes, but just different times. So I think it's mostly Telluride and Sundance. I guess Slam Dance, if you could consider that, takes place at the same time as Sundance in Park City. Did we go to Santa Barbara? I don't know.
What about AFI? Were we ever there at the same
Yes,
time?
yes, we were. Yeah, no parties, but oh, Palm Springs. There you go.
God, we had the greatest time in Palm Springs. And yeah, it's so much fun knowing you and then being in another city and running into you and seeing how all the people there respond and react. And the sentiment from everybody at the festival was Derek did an amazing job. Derek is brilliant. And Derek, we were just talking about all the cool people from Santa Fe that are there making the Annapolis Film Festival happen. We could also maybe give a shout out to Patty and Lee. It was a wonderful year for them. They got a big standing ovation at the beginning of opening night, and the mayor was really involved in that opening night too. And so, again, I just had the most amazing time. There were some really quality parties. It was such a class act. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm glad you could make it, Jacques, and you added to the panel, the streaming panel, and I think a lot of people were excited to meet you. A lot of them probably asking you to get their film into Santa Fe now, right? Were
God,
you?
and a lot of them who had played their short films last October, I finally got to put a face with a name, and a few of them had been to Santa Fe for the festival, but didn't get to meet me last year for whatever reason. But um, I'm trying to think of the Kinderland director.
Yes, Amy Grappel was there. Yep. Because I don't think you're not always at the shorts programs as much in Santa Fe, are you? I mean, sometimes you might dash in and
Well,
out.
and I meet so many people that week, so it can be kind of a blur. So if I have a brief hello or introduction with someone, that might not register that
But
well.
you remembered Katie and Andrew. They're hard to forget. Andrew and Katie, the couple from Seeing Someone, they were hilarious. They added so much to the Q&As. They're pretty much like stand-up comics. And so if you ever get a chance to see their short film Seeing Someone, highly recommend it. Mike Peebler was there with his short film Foreclosure, which had also played at Santa Fe. So yeah, a lot of Summer is for Sandcastles, Harris Gurney, his film, a lot of the comedy shorts that I had at Santa Fe. I had talked them all into coming to Annapolis because I told them how much fun it would be. So yeah, we've got a nice little uh, kind of a reciprocal relationship there. I borrow some films from Santa Fe and take them to Annapolis, and then I borrow some from Annapolis and bring them to Santa Fe.
And the quality of your programming is unbelievable. There's so many rinky-dink festivals or festivals that represent the city they're in poorly, but I really feel like Annapolis Film Festival is a boon for the city and the state, and it brings together this great little community. It's so walkable. The architecture's great. The crab lobster rolls, the crab cakes, all of that. I
Well,
couldn't get enough.
yeah, I have to give Patty and Lee credit for that. I mean, this was their 10th festival. I only came on board 6 years ago. So the setup for the festival, the location, how it's run, the parties, the oyster shuckers at the opening night reception, that's always been a tradition for them. And they kind of like those old school festivals where they really treat filmmakers well, give them hospitality, and put a lot of effort into the parties and theming them. And it's really special. And a lot of times in this current, I mean, Sundance doesn't even hardly do film at their parties anymore because everyone started gravitating towards the private parties. So why waste time at the putting a lot of money in the public parties? So but Annapolis, we do a really nice after party on Thursday night that all the public can go to that have bought a ticket to the film. And we do the Saturday night bash, but then we have some really nice exclusive receptions for the donors and the industry to go to. So yeah, I'm always very excited to tell filmmakers to come experience Annapolis because I feel festivals, they're changing a lot, and those little nice details sometimes get, you know, marked off the budget if you can't afford it. And let's face it, it was difficult coming back after 2 years virtual. It was really almost like we had to reconstruct the festival again. And a lot of the sponsors couldn't give as much as they used to. But hopefully, as recovery continues next year, it'll be bigger and better than ever. But I definitely think the programming was better than ever this year. I never thought anything could top 2020, the festival that got canceled from COVID. Well, it was the festival that we had to put online virtually. But this year, I feel like we even outdid that. And
Derek, Derek, do you eat shucked oysters?
sure, I eat fried oysters, all kinds of oysters, Rockefeller, you name it. Why?
Yeah, they had two different kinds. I think they said the first ones on the left were from Maryland and the second ones were from Virginia. Is that
Cool. Well, I'm
right?
glad you enjoyed them. I didn't get to have a single one because I was running around shuttling people in this year. So, but I'm so glad you got to experience the oyster bar there in the tent.
So, yeah, let's. I want to give a big up to Castle and Eileen too. I had an amazing time with them as usual. Eileen O'Brien is a MC for the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival, and Castle does our dailies. That's Castle Searcy, and they've been with us for 7, 8, maybe even 9 years, I think. And I was so happy to see both of them in Annapolis.
It was their
And
first time in Annapolis too. Your first time, Bryce and Nathan's first time, um, Chris's second time, but his first time he actually got to work his magic on the screens, and I could prove to Patty and Lee why Chris was such a great hire. I mean, he was definitely instrumental that year. We had to go virtual because of COVID, but now they were totally blown away by how organized he and Bryce had all the print traffic. All the films were in before the festival began, and usually in years past, there's always a few lingering films that haven't sent their print in by the start of the festival, and we're always
I
blown
ran
away.
into Nathan at the start of the fest, like on Thursday afternoon. I went to get my badge, and there was no tent. And he had several other guys working with him there. But when I was back a couple hours later, there was a tent, and he's going, "I
Yep.
did this."
Nathan's the miracle worker. I mean, I can't believe how difficult his job must be, especially coming to a brand new town and getting familiar with the logistics. And he learned it quickly, and he did a great job. So he definitely, you know, I don't know if this is what he wants to do because he's a great talented filmmaker and might get a great job in Europe. Who knows? I'm not saying anything right now, but he deserves all the success coming his way. But he also makes a really good festival coordinator, or whatever they called his job. He's really good at doing all those logistics.
And I mean, his film Harry and Avis, I just love. I think it's such an achievement, and
Didn't it win
really,
audience award at Santa Fe plus some other special programming award? Like it won multiple awards at Santa Fe a few years ago.
yeah, it won Best New Mexico Film, and I'm not sure what the other prize was, but I think you're right. It won more than one. That was 2016, I believe. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the next project from him. We had a short film from him just a couple years ago, and I think they have another one on the way. But I'm hoping he gets a chance to make his second feature really soon, since Harry and Avis, I feel like, really belongs in the lexicon of that type of comedy film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got to meet Patty and Lee finally. You talked to them on the phone for years, and now you met them in person. What do you think of them? I mean, can you believe Patty's sons, Tim and Trevor White, the producers of King Richard? She was there at the Oscars in person the weekend before the festival. Patty was there to witness the whole spectacle that was on opening night.
I just
Oscar
thought
night.
she was lovely, and I thought they did such a great job. And well, Derek, I've always thought of you as an institution all by yourself, so I'm glad you've teamed up with an institution like USC. Everybody, this was Derek Horne, the short film programmer from the Santa Fe Independent Film Festival, and we talked about his awesome program as the director of programming at the Annapolis Film Fest in Annapolis, Maryland. And we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us.